Hey, what's up, people? Piz out here, and continuing my series, 13 Days of Friday the 13th. Today I'm going to bring you guys my review of Friday the 13th Part 2, The Body Count Continues. But before I start talking about Friday the 13th Part 2, I have to talk about the impact of the original Friday the 13th, which of course, as I mentioned in the previous video, it was shot on a very minuscule budget. It was shot very, very quickly. It was intended to just be a cash-in, a way to make a quick buck based on the success of Halloween, to keep the lights on so Sean Cunningham and his crew could finish their children's movie, which they thought was going to be their launching pad into Hollywood success. Of course, Friday the 13th was picked up by Paramount Studios. It was given a huge release, backed by a lot of money as far as advertising for the film, and it became this runaway sleeper hit. It was the highest grossing horror film of 1980, and very quickly, Sean Cunningham and his crew were burdened with this success and how to capitalize on it, how to cash in on the success of Friday the 13th. And the original idea that Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, the writer of the original Friday the 13th, had was to do this yearly sort of anthology film. Think of sort of what they did with Halloween 3, wherein every Friday the 13th they would release a different Friday the 13th film, a different horror film, new cast, different story, just a horror film every Friday the 13th. Well, Paramount and the backers in Boston said, nope, we're not going to do that. And so they sort of quickly said, okay, how are we going to make a sequel, a direct sequel to Friday the 13th, when basically all the characters from that film, including the antagonist, are all dead? Well, let's make Jason the Killer. We'll just say that Jason didn't drown as a boy, that he somehow survived out in the woods, unbeknownst to even his own mother, and he witnessed his mother's decapitation at the hands of Alice, and now he wants revenge. Fast forward 5 years later, and Jason has tracked down Alice, played again by Adrienne King, which has been a source of confusion for a lot of Friday the 13th devotees. How did Jason find her? Did he look her up in the phone book? Did he hire a private investigator? Don't know. How did he get to her house? Did he just sort of walk there? And if she no longer lived in the area around Crystal Lake, did he just walk God knows how many miles with a tater sack on his head, carrying his dead mother's head under his arm to get there? No idea. Anyway, the pre-credit sequence to Friday the 13th Part 2 runs about 12 minutes. It is full of flashbacks from the original Friday the 13th, which again only came out, Friday the 13th Part 2 came out about a year, almost a year to the day after the original Friday the 13th, but they still give us a pretty extensive flashback to the original Friday the 13th, and Alice is sort of, what's interesting is Adrienne King in real life at this point was struggling with a stalker for real, and here she was in Friday Part 2 being stalked by Jason. And anyway, Jason gets his revenge. What's interesting about this pre-credit sequence is it sort of created the mold that a lot of horror films still follow, that big pre-credit kill. I mean, we've seen it in quite a few other Friday the 13th films, of course. I mean, Scream sort of made it standard that if you're going to make just about any kind of horror movie, particularly a slasher movie, you've got to have a big pre-credit kill. But from there, Jason goes back to Camp Crystal Lake, where he discovers a camp counselor training center is on the lake. Apparently, Camp Crystal Lake is just this huge body of water. You can have a camp on it. You can have a summer camp counselor training center on it. You can have residences all over it. And one just sort of doesn't know the other one is there, apparently. But all the camp counselor trainees soon begin to disappear one by one, much like the events of Friday the 13th. And Friday the 13th Part 2 is pretty much a facsimile of the original Friday the 13th. You've got pretty much the same story, you've got the same body count, you've even got a similar ending. But of course, I mean, they were working definitely under the gun. They had a short amount of time to get the film going. Like I said, it was released almost a year to the day after the original Friday the 13th. What Friday the 13th Part 2 attempted to do was just make a more polished, a more professional looking film with more, bloodier kills, And for the most part, they did that. Steve Miner stepped up, Sean Cunningham's protege. He directed Friday the 13th Part 2. They had a little bit more money in the budget, so the movie does look more polished. You've got a lot of sort of roving tracking shots and POV shots and stuff. So the movie does look more polished, a little more professional than the original Friday the 13th. Miner does manage to capture that sort of dark, bleak, ominous atmosphere, that evil tone that the original Friday the 13th had quite well. A lot of the kills in the sequel, unfortunately, are pretty heavily edited. The movie, and you can tell the movie kind of jumps around. It looks like it was edited with a machete, really. There's about 40 seconds worth of footage cut from the film so it could maintain an R rating, which is unfortunate. We still have a couple of pretty cool kills. We have the two lovers being pinned to the bed with like this spear that Jason pushes through both of them. Very reminiscent of the film Bay of Blood, which Friday the 13th Part 2 is very, very reminiscent of Mario Bava's Giallo, Bay of Blood. I don't care what Steve Miner or the writer Ron Kerr said, that they had never seen Bay of Blood up to that point. Sure you hadn't. We also have a very cool kill, probably one of the most mean-spirited, just cold-hearted kills in Friday the 13th history. You've got this poor fella in a wheelchair, and he's about to get lucky. He's on his way to get lucky, and then wham, machete in the face, sending him in his chair hurtling down this long flight of stairs. Just mean. Just mean. You've got pretty similar character types as you had in the original film. You've got the jokester, you've got the young couple, you've got the guy going after one of the girls at the camp, a sort of unrequited love going on there. All the characters are pretty likable, I have to say. They're fairly well written. There's not a whole lot of dialogue in the film, but it's a slasher movie, so it seems like it's a little faster paced than the original film as well. Although we do have probably the last act of the film is this very long extended chase sequence between Jason and the final girl, Jenny, played by Amy Steele. And I definitely should take a moment to spotlight Amy Steele, who is, her portrayal of Jenny is one of the most endearing sort of heralded final girls in Friday the 13th history. She's pretty beloved. She's got that, girl next door kind of feel. She's cute, but she's tough. So, I mean, she could kick your ass if it came to that, and that definitely, a lot of fans really took to that, and she may actually be, in Friday the 13th history, the most beloved final girl. If she is for you, definitely let me know what you think in the comment section below. But yeah, that extended chase sequence goes on for maybe a little bit too long, but it all culminates with, like I said, a pretty similar ending to the original, or a similar ending in Part 2 that the original had, to sort of big jump, big boo scare at the very end, which is also kind of confusing because the film ends differently than it was intended to, which if of course I'm assuming that you've seen Friday the 13th Part 2 and you've seen it hopefully several times, where Jenny is being wheeled out into this ambulance and she's saying, "Where's," and his name escapes me, her boyfriend, I forget, Bill, Bob, something like that, I don't recall. And you just don't know. They just wheel her into the ambulance, and they go away, and you don't really know what happened to him. Apparently, the original ending was to focus in on Jason's mother's head, and her eyes were to open, and she was to smile. The head, and that was supposed to tell audiences that Jenny's boyfriend is dead, and that Jason has gone away. He somehow decided to let Jenny survive, and the evil will continue in Friday the 13th Part 3. Of course, that they decided that ending with Jason's mother's eyes opening and smiling was just too hokey, too generic, and they decided not to use it. So it just sort of freeze frames at the moment before she opens her eyes, and just sort of ends on a fairly confusing note. Friday the 13th Part 2, like I said, it is very much like the original Friday the 13th, just a bit more polished. It is a lot of fun. It's a pretty solid slasher movie. I do like it quite a bit. It introduced the world to Jason Voorhees, a very sort of... it's interesting to think of how Jason started. And Jason, Friday the 13th Part 2, he's got the tater sack on, he's got his overalls on, he looks very much like the killer from The Town That Dreaded Sundown. So there's yet another homage that Friday the 13th Part 2 uses. To think of how he started to where he went all the way to space is really just sort of... it boggles the mind, to be perfectly honest. But this was the film that introduced the world to Jason Voorhees, and a very interesting, and a lot of people say, you know, they really like, you know, the tater sack version of Jason, that he's a more ominous, sort of scarier version of Jason than even, you know, some of the later versions of Jason. And of course, everyone knows Jason as, you know, the guy in the hockey mask, but he started as the guy in the tater sack. So, but yeah, I like Friday the 13th Part 2 quite a bit. Much like the original, it does have its flaws, it does have its faults, but it's a solid slasher movie. It's a fun slasher movie. I like it a lot. It's one that I find myself reaching for every now and again, just to kind of, you know, just to give it a rewatch, because it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of Friday the 13th Part 2 in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think of Jenny in the comment section below. Is Amy still your favorite final girl in Friday the 13th history? Just open discussion. Just talk about Friday the 13th Part 2 in the comment section below. And yeah, until next time, when I see you guys with Friday the 13th Part 3 3D, you guys take it easy.